The crisp white form laying neatly on the plastic clipboard she had been given stared at her mockingly as the tiny seeds of doubt within her began to sprout. Every single part of her clashed with her current environment, from the pristine cream color scheme of the room to the immaculately dressed people surrounding her. Neatly manicured hands filled out their forms with smug expressions. They knew their place in the world. Life had been handed to them on a silver platter. They were sure of their gifts, whether it be physical, intellectual, or magical. They probably all specified in a single magical discipline and excelled at it, unlike her. Holding in a sigh of exasperation, she allowed her eyes to skim the sheet's contents, the painful twisting in her stomach intensifying as she realized the information she needed to provide to even be considered to be a part of the city's defense force. It was a chance to give back and to provide, for the small group of other orphans that had become her family over her 25 years on this earth. It was a chance to hopefully make a difference in such a way that no other children will go hungry or sleep in the streets like she had, like thousands did now. Although it ashamed her to admit it, she knew that deep down she also wanted to be a part of the city's famous defense force out of pride. She wanted to prove it to herself, to the parents that had abandoned her, and to the city that had failed her. She wanted to prove to the shy, miserable 5-year-old that she had once been that she could make it. She could do amazing things, and she would continue to. She had survived after all, against all the odds. Next to her, Angela, one of the teenage street orphans that had taken her under their wing 20 years ago, was staring around the room with a blatant look of disgust etched plainly over her features. Despite only being in her late 30s, the gray hairs and fatigue lines grooved deep into her face only further cemented into Natalia's mind why she was doing this. Just like they had done for her, she also needed to help the future generations of the city, the generation that were cast out on the streets without a second thought. The original members of the group she called her family were too old to even attempt to do what Natalia was attempting to do. Utopia, home to 38 million people as of 2029. The biggest city in the world, the most wealthiest by far, yet also the poorest when it came down to caring for all its occupants. The jobless, homeless, basically the poor, slipped through the cracks and were treated like they didn't exist. If she joined Utopia's defense force, she would be making enough income to get them at least running water in the old warehouse they had made their home. This is a ridiculous idea, Natalia. Honestly, what are you thinking? We will make income in other ways, just like we always have. Nick and Alex have another painting job today, and I'm performing tomorrow, so that will at least pay for food for the next month. I refuse to see you behave like a circus animal, Angela. I refuse to see you be used for others' entertainment. I mean, your ability is a gift, not a. With a pointed glare in her direction, Angela started her version of angry whispering. Shush, you know that my gift is meaningless in this world. Any specific magic is useless unless you're born into wealth or status. Unless you are given the opportunity to excel at your discipline. Which is another reason why this idea of yours is ridiculous. You are, well, a jack of all trades, Natalia. You're magic. Returning her friend's glare with an equal one of her own, she started to angrily whisper back. I know perfectly well that my magical ability borders on useless, but the defense force gets up to all kinds of weird stuff. Yes, I know while in everyday life my limited abilities in a whole range of disciplines isn't too helpful, perhaps they will be of use there. I may not be able to control bonfire-scale infernos like you or make it rain like Nick, but I can create small flames and have rudimentary control over the weather, even if it's just a simple breeze or cloud. The older woman next to her huffed once but said nothing. Her pursed lips and tense jaw saying everything while saying nothing at all. Turning her attention back to the form, the young woman swallowed hard as she looked at the blank field she needed to fill in. First name, Natalia. Last name, unknown. Age, 25. Address, the old abandoned textiles warehouse on 8th Avenue, near the National Performing Arts Academy. Contact details, snail mail. Occupation, freelancer? Was freelancer a nice way to say that she was a street orphan who was gifted in the art of staying alive without the modern luxuries? She could do anything that would provide even the most basic income, cleaning, painting, cheap parlor tricks thanks to her varied yet low-level magic. She could fight as well as martial artists, although it was a bit dirtier thanks to years of street gang wars. Besides, it was too late now to back out. Angela knew as perfectly well as she did that the city politely got rid of those with jack-of-all-trades magic. According to the media, they were put in government jobs where their unique skills could be properly utilized, but everyone knew that was garbage. They were rarely seen again, and while the government had a no-execution policy that had been in place for hundreds of years, they were locked away, that was a definite. She was taking a great risk to sign up for the Defense Force. If they didn't want her, she would become one of the mysterious disappearances. Looking at Angela's premature gray hairs and fatigue lines, she saw 5-year-old Natalia sitting in the gutter crying. She saw the hundreds of injuries, both physical and emotional, as she had seen at the hands of street gangs and wars for the past 20 years. She saw the way the city occupants, even the city officials, pretended that her family and her didn't exist. If they didn't fit Utopia's perfect image, they were ignored. Today, she was going to change that, if not for her younger self or her family's sake, but for the sake of all the people that were swept under the glitz and glamour of Utopia's shadow.